Ron Harris here from MuscularDevelopment.com at Gold's Gym in Long Beach, California, the day after Legion Sports Fest in Long Beach. Sitting here with 212 competitor Chris Tuttle. Chris, this was your comeback show after 4 years away from the stage. What was it like getting back up there after a very long time away?
Well, I mean, it was great. I love competing, and I was sidelined with a knee injury that kept persisting, and then the left leg atrophied, so competing was really out for a long time. Still never really stopped living the lifestyle, but I mean, I love bodybuilding. I love more of the, really honestly, the lifestyle aspect of it, much more than the actual competing itself. But I mean, it's not like you're going to keep living the lifestyle so strictly, not actually compete. But it was really great being out there, and obviously a few rusty things, you know, got a little criticized for my tan, but whatever. You know, I had fun. I was actually happy with the package that I brought after all this time off, but it was a good time, and it was a great show. There's no question about it. It was well run. I liked how it was one day. You had the expo, very smooth backstage, and I really don't have any complaints.
Yeah. I mean, I thought you looked so much better than I remember you from years ago. You've definitely put on the quality size, and you've kept the waist tight, small. I think that was definitely your best look I've ever seen on you.
Yeah, you know, everybody's got their opinion on that. I had some people say, you know, I wasn't at my best, but I would say overall package was, I think I was at my best. Could you make an argument that North Americans, I had more paper thin, but not as full? Sure, but I was happy with my fullness. I was happy with my leanness. The only thing I would change would be my tan. I'm a pasty guy, and I got a lot of tan caked on. Yes. Probably should have done more Jose Raymond's method, doing more base coats leading it up to it to stain the skin instead of putting it on top of the skin. But I had fun, man. It was great. I like being out there, and I'm planning on competing again next year as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Because, well, I want to wrap up this show before we talk about the next show, because, you know, you ended up getting 11th, which I thought you certainly could have done a few places higher. It's a very subjectively judged sport, as we know. But, you know, you have a great attitude. You know, a lot of people in a situation like that the next day would be really grouchy and negative and talking about the judging and this and that. But, you know, you seem to be taking it on the chin and happy with how everything went.
Well, a lot of people aren't going to like me saying this, but in bodybuilding, there's a lot of fragile egos. And with the fragile egos becomes false expectations to keep them afloat. And then all of a sudden when they go and they do a show and it doesn't work out the way they were, it's like a pincushion. And there's nothing but to do. Instead of feeling those emotions, they point fingers. But I mean, I've been competing in individual sports my entire life. I know what it's like to lose. I know what it's like to put 100% all into something and still get your face smashed in wrestling and racing motocross. So it's not new to me. I mean, you just get up and you do it again. And you keep going. I mean, let's be honest. There's only one winner each day, right? Yeah. So it's not like, you know, I know in like racing and boxing, it's like, well, you got knocked out. You're the first person on the finish line, and you can't argue the objectivity of that. But like, it is what it is. There's no point in just pissing and moaning and pointing fingers. It doesn't really help you move forward. Yeah. And I'm just excited to go back at it and start training, fix some few things, and compete again next year.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to piss some people off because I know the mental aspect does play heavily into it, and you have to be positive. You have to believe and visualize you're going to win. But you can visualize you're going to win for 16 weeks every day, all day long. But at the end of the day, contest day, you stand next to somebody who just happens to have a physique that the judges prefer. All that visualization and positive attitude is not going to make the judges change their mind.
Oh, 100%. And I think that being said, Ron, is like, you know, it's important to visualize winning and really be in the zone and stuff like that. And it's a whole nother to really understand the realisticness of it not going in your favor. Because you could go up against a lineup, you could be 100%, go up against a lineup, I'm sorry, you could be 80%, go up against a line that's not great and win. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, be 110% perfect and get fifth against a harder lineup. And then people were like, well, what the hell? I took the judge's advice. I did everything they said to do. I'm like, listen, guy, they were just better than you. And that's a hard pill for some people to swallow, you know?
So let's talk about you in the future and divisions. Is 212 division somewhere you feel you belong, or do you feel it's time to step away and move up to open?
Absolutely not. I don't belong in 212. I knew that. I just knew, you know, going into the show this year and everything clicking in the last 6 months with training and my new training style, my body responding really well. Just obviously wasn't quite big enough to do open, but I did wanted to compete no matter what. Obviously, I was advised against it and to do open, but my coach Andrew Vu, who helped me with this, he did a great job. Evan and Jose, they all agree that open would be the way to go. But I just wanted to compete one more time this year, and next year we'll see how my growth goes. But I plan on competing in the open if my knee holds up. But so far it is, as long as I don't get all excited and start trying to do things I used to do. I got to stay with what I can do, and it seems to be working, and that's what I'm going to move forward with.
Hey, we touched on this in our interview a couple weeks ago. We did on the Ronline thing for YouTube, but you've moved away from that younger attitude of ego and I have to lift X amount of weight or else I'm a failure. And it's you've actually put on a lot more size, and you probably aren't using as heavy weights in a lot of things as you used to use. Am I correct?
What's funny is every single time I got injured, I grew faster. Because it forced me to think outside the box and what I can do to stimulate the muscle without using as much weight due to an injury. I remember one year after I partially tore my left pec, 8 months later, Evan's like, dude, your chest got really big. Your chest made some improvements. I'm like, it's funny because I injured it. So I was forced to do other things that I wouldn't normally do. Instead of running to the bench press, putting 3 plates on there and start banging out as many reps as I can, and be look at me, 315 for 20 reps. I had to be like, man, how can I make this 80-pound dumbbell as hard as possible? How can I make this 80-pound dumbbell stimulate all my chest and not my shoulder or not the pec tear or the scar tissue? And then eventually I had to do that. So I had to think to myself, well, if that worked, why wouldn't that work for other things? Yeah. I mean, everybody loves training heavy. If I had the ability to do it, I would be obnoxious too and lift heavy weight. But that's not in it for me. And I think sometimes when people start chasing and copying other people and not worrying about what they need to do as an individual or learning their own biofeedback, that's when you run into problems.
In our interview, you said something that really resonated, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people who've been doing this and who start accruing injuries. And, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it, a lot of us are guilty of it, we worry about, I used to do this and I can't do it anymore, and we cry about what we can't do anymore. But you said you adopted the attitude that I'm going to not think about what I can't do anymore, focus on what I can still do, and really work hard on that. And that seems to have really paid off for you.
100%. I mean, I hurt my knee really bad in 2015, actually getting ready for New York Pro. Healed, and then I hurt it devastatingly bad about 6 months later. From that point forward, I was so fixated on trying to do what I used to do. Got to get back to squatting. Got to back to front squatting. And then I wasn't getting anywhere. It'd be 3 weeks of good training, hurt it again. 2 weeks of good training, hurt it again. I'm like, this is clearly not working. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I got to go around to the gym, find different exercises that I can use that don't hurt, and stay with those consistently. Because if you're not consistent, you're not growing. And John Meadows has a YouTube channel, and he has a lot of good videos of certain ways of hitting angles. And I kind of picked out some key things in there and sparked some ideas that I got from him, and they've been working wonderfully well. Yeah.
Well, I hate to ask people to plan when the show was 5 minutes ago. It's you basically just finished the show, but where do you go from here? What are you thinking about as far as roughly the next 6 months to a year? What do you want to do?
What's funny you say that, Ron, is I always tell people in bodybuilding is there is no solid plan in bodybuilding. It's a tentative plan. Because you never know what's going to happen as far as injuries, schedules, or what have you not. But the tentative plan is to compete next year. Whether it will, when it will be obviously dependent on my rate of growth, which obviously, guys, you can't determine that. You can't be like, well, by this time in 2022, I'll be approximately 42 pounds heavier. Doesn't work that way. Your body decides at the end of the day how much growth it's going to put on. You can't force it. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to compete next year unless something catastrophically happens. But when that is, will really be dependent on my rate of growth and, of course, my knee.
What are you looking to improve on?
I have to improve my back. My back has got to come up. My chest and my shoulders got to come up more. And obviously continue my legs, but really number one priority is my back. My rear double bicep is still continuously my weakest point. It has gotten significantly better. It just needs to be much better.
Well, if anyone can pull it off successfully, injury-free, you're a thinking man's bodybuilder along the lines of a Meadows and an Evan. That's why I always enjoy talking to you. And it's fun to watch these meatheads scream and sling a bunch of weights around, but there's nothing instruction. You're not going to learn anything from guys like that.
It's cool and it's glamorous, and I always make this joke. It's like everybody's a beast in the gym until they get to the kitchen. Then they can't control themselves on a diet and they cheat and they can't come in shape. I always scratch my head on that, and many of you guys out there who train heavy and hard, that's great. I would be doing it too if I could, but it's a school of hard knocks. And I was warned many times when I was younger, kid, you're going to hurt your lower back. Kid, you better pump your brakes. I'm like, whatever, old man. I can do fine. And then you start getting injured. Then you realize you're not invincible. Then you're like, that guy knew something. It's like, yeah, no shit. Because he's been there before, It's hard to listen to older people when you're young, because when you're young, you know very little. So you think the amount of information you have is only this much, when the amount of information that's really out there is a lot. Hence, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything. It's true.
Yeah. Well, Chris, congratulations. That was a fantastic comeback. A lot of guys, they come back after a few years, and it's not a pretty sight, but you really looked better than ever. Condition was spot on. I'm a big fan of your physique, regardless of where you place. Continue to follow you and support you, and thanks for doing this. Awesome. And wishing you the very best.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
MuscularDevelopment.com. It's been Chris Tuttle.